So the new horror anime of summer 2025, the Summer Hikaru Died, just dropped its 3rd episode, and wow, has it absolutely broken the internet. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to Finn Films. Join me today as we are discussing the Summer Hikaru Died, a horror anime that has very quickly become probably one of my favorite anime of summer 2025. In today's video, we are going to be covering episode 3 in a nutshell. And yes, I will be going over that specific moment. So last time on The Summer Hikaru Died, we see the relationship between our main character Yoshiki and the skinwalking entity that is masquerading as his best friend Hikaru slowly begin to devolve into this very toxic, obsessive relationship. Meanwhile, the investigator Mr. Tanaka arrives in their town to investigate all of the strange supernatural events that have been taking place recently. As these supernatural events have begun to escalate over the last few days, Yoshiki being attacked by a strange spirit in the mountain forest, Hikaru saving him, sucking it up into his body. Hikaru later on showing him just how he did this, giving us one of the most sus scenes of this entire anime so far. Yoshiki getting super freaked out and pondering if he should possibly tell someone about this strange entity that is skinwalking as his best friend. Episode 3 of The Summer Hikaru Died opens with a flashback between Hikaru and Yoshiki, specifically a memory of the two of them together on a hot summer day eating watermelon. The two boys laughing and just having a fun time together, the two suddenly freaking out at the idea of eating watermelon seeds, afraid that they will be transformed into a watermelon man. We then flash back to the present as Yoshiki goes to Hikaru's house, bringing a fresh watermelon. The two, once again, hanging out on a hot summer day in a scene that very much parallels and mirrors the flashback scene we saw in the opening moments. Hikaru jokingly devouring the watermelon like he did when he was a kid. Hikaru also jokingly referencing the fear that they had when they were children about turning into watermelon people. This series of events very much messing with Yoshiki's head, as the entity skinwalking as Hikaru has all of his best friend's memories and mannerisms, but it's very much not Hikaru. Something that Yoshiki is extremely aware of and struggles to come to grips with. This is one of my favorite parts of kind of the horror of this series. The fact that Yoshiki very much knows that this is not the real Hikaru, and almost the more that this skinwalking entity continues to act and pretend and mirror the real Hikaru, the more it is obvious to Yoshiki that this is very much not his friend that he remembers, but merely a cheap clone, an entity almost just role-playing as him. And the more that Yoshiki continues to go along with this farce, the more that it continues to fuck with his head. Yoshiki realizing that he can't go on like this. He can't continue to live like this to pretend that everything is just normal, and not share what he is going through with some other person, as he decides to text the kind woman that he met at the end of episode 2 to meet with her and tell her everything that's going on. Yoshiki is then reminded of Hikaru's father and his death and mysterious disappearance, seeing a picture of them all together when they were kids. The disappearance of Hikaru earlier that year seemingly having some kind of link to the disappearance of his father, as Hikaru went to the mountain around the same time of year that his dad ultimately disappeared all those years ago when they were children. This being another teaser to the kind of greater mystery, the long-term kind of story plot of this anime. Yoshiki then steps out of the room to go and speak with Hikaru's mom. Hikaru waking up looking at his phone, seeing that Yoshiki is having a text conversation with some mysterious person. We then flash over to the next day as we see Yoshiki meeting with this woman, the two of them going to get lunch in an American diner. Here, Yoshiki breaks down into tears, telling the woman everything that has happened to him so far. The woman saying again to him that he cannot be mixing with this entity, as this will ultimately lead him to losing his humanity. The woman being surprised, expecting the entity to take the form of a girl, seeing as the two have been mixing with one another. This being another kind of obvious teaser and reference to the seeming nature of the relationship between Hikaru and Yoshiki, this very boy love-esque relationship, a kind of forbidden love, if you will. The woman then tells Yoshiki about the strange events that have been happening in town. Her theory being that these are all a result of the entity ultimately leaving the mountain. She also theorizes that the death of the old woman that we saw at the end of episode 1 must be connected to this being, something that we, the audience, actually know was directly caused by the skinwalking Hikaru. Hikaru, who we watched kill her in the end of episode 1. The woman again telling Yoshiki that he can't continue to hang out with this person that he knows is gone. The next day at school, we see Yoshiki is struggling with this realization, as he is actively trying to avoid Hikaru. Yoshiki pondering all of the information he learned from this woman in his head, of this strange being's obsession with him, of the threat that it could actually kill him, of the strange name Nonoki-sama, the mysterious entity on the mountain that has been seemingly locked away, the death of Matsura, the old woman, as well as the weird events in the village. Yoshiki ultimately accepting that he must move on from Hikaru, that he must accept that his best friend is dead, and that this being, this skin-walking entity, cannot replace him. As we see Hikaru, like a lost puppy, finally finds Yoshiki alone in this classroom. Yoshiki tells him to walk home alone. Hikaru trying to do a funny face like the real Hikaru used to do to cheer him up, but Yoshiki just looks at him with this cold stare. Yoshiki finally telling him to get out of his face, to leave him alone. Hikaru asks if he's mad at him, if he did something wrong, asking if he has been hiding something from him, asking him why he was secretly messaging some stranger and then meeting them in town. Hikaru saying that you used to tell me everything. Yoshiki in this moment finally snaps, basically saying that he did used to tell Hikaru everything, but that was Hikaru and you aren't him. This kind of realization causing the skinwalking Hikaru's mind to basically kind of break. To understand that Yoshiki is upset because as try as he might, even if his voice is the same, even if he looks like him and acts like him and has his memories, he is not the real Hikaru. The fake Hikaru, overcome with emotion, reaches out, gripping Yoshiki's wrist hard, as it struggles to deal with this overwhelming bombardment of emotions, gripping his wrist so hard that it actually leaves a mark. The being saying that he needs Yoshiki, that he cannot function without him, as it begins actually freaking out, saying it doesn't understand which emotions are his anymore, which emotions are its, and which ones are the real Hikaru's. As we watch the entity's face split, the strange eldritch-like puddle weird being seeping out of him, as Yoshiki can only watch on in horror. Now, if you thought that the scene in the sports closet was, well, hella sus, all I can say is, strap yourselves in for this one, guys. We watch the strange, blob-like, eldritch horror being suddenly surge throughout the room, suddenly diving towards Yoshiki, knocking him on his back as it pins him down. To Yoshiki's horror, the being suddenly begins filling his mouth. Yoshiki freaking out until he realizes that it starts to feel good. I swear to God, this is his words, not mine. I am not making this up. This is how the anime was translated. Yoshiki says this, "It's coming inside of me." Yoshiki getting a vision, a flash of some strange person in the past holding a small child, as he suddenly wakes up coughing and retching. The skinwalking Hikaru crying in shame at having realized what it just did, at having violated him. Okay, so to say that these scenes are sus, I think is like a bit of an understatement. I mean, it's extremely apparent and obvious the certain type of themes, the kind of references, the homages that they were very much going for here in this scene. But you see, if we look a little bit deeper, there is very much like a lot more that is at play here than just these kind of lewd references. No, this kind of imagery very much plays into the ultimate horror themes that are going on here in this anime and this story. So if it isn't obvious, there are very much hidden themes and feelings that are going on between these two characters. There is very much a love for each other between Yoshiki and Hikaru that extends far beyond their friendship. Seemingly though, this love was always unspoken, something more akin to a relationship. Thus, when this skinwalking being ultimately, claimed Hikaru's body and his thoughts, his feelings, and emotions, with it came these feelings of love for Yoshiki as a person. Thus, this obsession with Yoshiki began to be born. An extremely unhealthy obsession that is very much playing on this idea of like a toxic, unhealthy relationship. These feelings of paranoia, of jealousy, of ownership, and forbidden love. Like, these themes, these ideas are horrifying in their own right. If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, or you've seen like a movie or a show that has to deal with a stalker or a toxic relationship, it's very obvious why these things are horrifying or scary. But if you take all of these themes and then you wrap them up in a kind of strange, eldritch, like body-like horror scenario, it's absolutely horrifying. Again, this whole scene and all of these themes would be uncomfortable and horrifying enough without all of these supernatural elements attached to it, but when you combine them together, it becomes downright horrifying in both a visceral way and also a psychological way. And personally, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I find it absolutely fascinating as a lover of horror. Back to the episode, we see the skinwalking Hikaru breaking down in tears, as it realizes that it ultimately violated this person that it cares about. It realizes the depths of what it has done, asking Yoshiki not to hate it, as he quickly runs from the classroom. Later, Yoshiki thinks about the events of today, about how pathetic he was for trying to act like everything was normal. The next day, we see Hikaru hasn't shown up at school, two of Yoshiki's classmates telling him that he should make up with his best friend. Yoshiki seemingly has come to regret what happened the previous evening, and all of the words that he told Hikaru, as he frantically rides his bike to Hikaru's house, bursting inside to find the boy curled up in a blanket in his room. Hikaru being very much embarrassed about what happened the previous evening. In his words, being embarrassed that he totally grossed him out. Hikaru suddenly, though, begins begging with him, telling him that he needs to be with him, asking him and begging him not to hate him. That he knows that ultimately he is just an intruder using his friend's body, but he is still deeply sorry. Yoshiki remembers that he shouldn't get too close to this entity, that it is dangerous for him, that he could lose his humanity. But he seemingly can't help himself, realizing that this thing is just lonely, as he gently and lovingly cradles Hikaru's face. Yoshiki realizing that this creature, this thing, is just lonely, and ultimately naive, and that he will have to teach him, as the episode ends. Whoo-wee, guys, where do we even start with this episode? Is it getting a little toasty in here to you? Okay, so if you are unfamiliar with this story, if you've only, taken in this story from the anime, then a lot of these themes were probably a bit shocking and a bit jarring to you. I mean, honestly, even as someone who's read a decent amount of the manga, a lot of these themes still are shocking and jarring to me. The Summer Hikaru Died is obviously a horror anime, and it is horror in a multiple of ways. There is the obvious, more notable body horror. These links to Japanese folklore, to spirits, to yokai, spirits living in the mountain, in the forest. However, all of these horror elements get wrapped up together in something more psychological. These themes of a toxic obsessive relationship, themes of a forbidden love, of coming to kind of terms with your sexuality. Two boys who seemingly have a love and deep relationship with one another, but for whatever reasons were unable to actually express this love. However, now that Hikaru has been seemingly claimed by this strange skinwalking entity, this love and this, what was once a deep, loving, caring friendship has devolved into something darker, something deeper, as we see these two boys slowly get mixed up and kind of enraptured together. That while, yes, part of something about their relationship is wholesome, there is also something a lot darker and deeper and more disturbing going on here. This is something I've talked about in a couple of my other videos over this anime, but it is something that I really love about this horror story, and I think they do really well. The fact that they very much disguise a lot of the elements of the horror of this anime within almost like another genre. There's so many elements of this anime and this story that are very slice of life. From even just the happy-go-lucky scenes that we see, just when Hikaru and Yoshiki just interact throughout the day, to the focus on their personal relationship, yet it always seems to twist and turn within elements of the actual horror story that's going on. Whether that's something a little more obvious and on the nose with references to all of these supernatural events going on here, actual, jump scares and horror freaky themes going on, or something a bit more nuanced in the devolving of the two's relationship. The creepy obsession that this skinwalking Hikaru seemingly has with our boy Yoshiki, the fact that Yoshiki is, on the one hand, terrified of this entity, knowing that it could kill him, yet on the other hand still has these feelings of the real Hikaru, these feelings being expressed onto this fake Hikaru, his unwillingness to let this person go. I mean, it's very easy to feel sympathy for this character. If I was in the same situation, and there was a person that I loved deeply and cared about, and then I had to come to terms with them being gone and dead, but yet at the same time, there was a skinwalking doppelganger, almost exact copy of them, right here and next to me, there is very much this kind of duality that plays out in your mind. The fact that you want to treat this doppelganger like the real thing because you love them so much, yet you know that this is fucked up in many ways. This is a weird, twisted type of psychological thing that your mind is trying to play on itself, and honestly, I love the story that's being told here. Yes, it is extremely sus at times. They very much play in this story a lot on this boy love. There's a lot of, it's very much teased. It's pretty obviously teased, but obviously they don't come out and say it right away. It in many ways is kind of a part of the mystery of the greater story going on here. But I think, while many elements of this story in this anime are, scary, there's a lot of different elements of horror at play here. And while I do love the body horror and the supernatural horror, to me, the scarier part of this story is the nature of their relationship. It is this yandere, obsessive, almost stalker, violent-esque like nature of the relationship. These two halves of Hikaru that seemingly are on display here. The one half where he is this very pathetic, almost sniveling child-like, very naive entity, but yet deep on the other side, it's something a lot darker and scarier there. He is not human. It is this almost eldritch horror-esque being that could easily snap and kill. We've seen the being kill already once in this show, so we have to remember that the anime and the story is very much trying to sucker you in, to lull you into a false sense of security, to focus more on the cute relationship between these two characters, and forget that in reality, this being is not of our world, and is absolutely horrifying, and man, do I love it. This anime and this story is absolutely wild, and obviously it's attracted I would say the Tumblr crowd of the internet, of the anime otaku fandom, for obvious reasons. I totally get it. I get it. People like a cute little boy love story. I get it. I'm not hating. Personally, for me, though, I love all of the deep horror themes that are going on here. I'm an actual sucker for a good horror story, and I feel like it's been a while since we've had a really good horror anime, like a horror manga that's actually adapted well into an anime. This feels like the first kind of big mainstream horror anime that I've seen in a long time, since the many attempts to try to adapt Junji Ito. And personally, it's definitely one of my favorite anime that has come out so far in Summer Anime 2025, a summer that has been filled with some absolute freaking bangers. As always, if you did enjoy the video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to support me, and it does go a long way in putting these videos into the algorithm. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out some of my other anime content that is on screen now. As always, guys, thank you again for continuing to support me. I hope to see you in the next video. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, Aru.